Is global warming true? This short video will allow you to answer that question for yourself. The world scientific community affirms that global warming is true. The U.S. National Academy of Sciences says that it is a settled fact that the Earth is warming, and that much of this warming is very likely due to human activities. In all, 33 National Academies of Science say that global warming is true, and 68 other national and international scientific organizations also say that global warming is true, bringing the total of such organizations affirming global warming to more than 100. Not a single organization of scientists in the world says global warming is not true. 97% of active climate scientists say global warming is true. But why do the world's scientists affirm global warming? Because they have made thousands of measurements that show the Earth is warming and that humans are the cause. This slideshow presents some of the evidence that convinces them. To understand global warming, we first need to review the greenhouse effect. It begins with the sun's rays passing through the atmosphere to strike and warm the Earth's surface, causing it to emit infrared or heat rays. Atmospheric greenhouse gases like CO2 absorb the outgoing heat rays and re-radiate some of the absorbed energy back down to the surface, warming it further. Without the greenhouse effect, Earth's surface would be nearly 60 degrees colder, and we could not live here. The more CO2 in the atmosphere, the warmer the Earth. The greenhouse effect is an undeniable fact of physics. But how do scientists know it has caused detectable global warming? The front panel of this chart shows how human-caused carbon emissions remained negligible until the Industrial Revolution, then rose steeply from fossil fuel combustion, shown in red, and land use changes, like deforestation. The middle panel, in brown, shows how atmospheric CO2 has risen with fossil fuel combustion. The jagged red line in the rear shows how global temperatures have varied greatly from year to year, but rose steeply with fossil fuel emissions and atmospheric CO2. Does the chart show cause and effect? To claim that it does not, you have to accept two things. First, that some unknown something suppressed the greenhouse effect, but no one has ever been able to identify that unknown something. Second, that some other unknown something caused the observed temperature increase. The only factor that might be strong enough is the sun's output. But, as this slide shows, while global temperatures, shown in red, have risen over the last 40 years, the sun's output, shown in blue, has been flat or even declining. To nail this point down, if sunshine were the cause of recent global warming, then days should have warmed more than nights, and summers should have warmed more than winters. But since the 1970s, nights have warmed more than days, and winters, shown in blue on this chart, have warmed more than summers, shown in red. The sun did not cause global warming. Let us return to this chart. It presents two choices. The first is to accept known cause and effect. Burning fossil fuels put more CO2 in the atmosphere. Then greenhouse warming caused the higher temperatures. The other choice is to appeal to two factors that no one has been able to identify. The key to accepting the first choice, cause and effect, is to be sure that the buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere really is due to human activity. Of that we can be sure. The change over time in the amounts of carbon isotopes in the atmosphere prove it. Plants and animals have a different ratio of carbon-13 to carbon-12 than the atmosphere. Coal comes from ancient plants, so as we burn more fossil fuel, the carbon isotope ratio of the atmosphere should change. It does. This slide shows how, as carbon emissions rose after 1970, black line, the carbon isotope ratio, red line, changed along with it, reflecting the greater contribution of atmospheric carbon coming from the burning of fossil plants. Are 20th century temperatures unusual? The hockey stick plot shows that during the 20th century, Northern Hemisphere temperatures rose higher and faster than at any time since AD 200, including during the medieval warm period from 950 to 1250. The U.S. National Academy of Sciences and other scientists have validated the hockey stick. Arctic temperatures also record the hockey stick rise. A plot of temperature anomalies since record-keeping began in the 1880s shows how temperatures have risen overall, with 2010 and 2005 tied for the warmest years on record. In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, there were more record low temperatures shown in blue than record highs shown in red. Today, more than twice as many record high temperatures are being set as record lows. High temperature records continue to be set. This chart shows the frequency of summer temperatures in Europe since the year 1500. They follow a bell-shaped curve as shown by the dark line. Each year since 1500 is shown by a vertical line with the 5 hottest and 5 coldest labeled. The 5 hottest summers have all occurred in this century, and 2010 was the hottest summer in Europe in the last 500 years. As another sign of warming, the growing season, defined as the number of days between the last frost in the spring and the first frost in the fall, is getting longer. Where does the Earth's heat go? Most of it winds up in the oceans, which have gained heat steadily since the 1970s. Also since the 1970s, the western U.S. has had warmer temperatures and more wildfires, top frame, snows that melt earlier, drying out the soil, middle frame, and fire seasons that start earlier and last longer and are harder to control, bottom frame. Here's another look at western snowfields. They are melting as much as 20 days earlier in the spring, as shown by the number and size of the red circles. The northern hemisphere is losing snow cover, as shown by the depth of the vertical bars. The northern hemisphere is also losing frozen ground, or permafrost, as shown by the depth of the red points. The process releases the potent greenhouse gas, methane. As warmer temperatures melt ice and snow, the world's glaciers are losing ice each year. Northern Hemisphere glaciers are also losing ice. The number of glaciers worldwide losing ice and retreating, shown by the height of the red bars, greatly exceeds the number advancing, shown in blue. As one example from many, Grinnell Glacier in Montana's Glacier National Park lost almost all of its ice between 1938 and 2009. Scientists project that by 2030, Glacier National Park will have no glaciers. The extent or area of Arctic sea ice, shown on the vertical axis, has declined since 1979. The volume of Arctic sea ice, shown on the vertical axis, has also declined and today is dropping rapidly. Greenland is losing ice. The deeper the blue color, the greater the loss of ice on Greenland. Antarctica is losing ice. Warmer water and meltwater from glaciers and ice caps are raising sea level. In the last few years, sea level has risen at the fastest rate on record. The red line shows more recent satellite measurements. This close-up of those satellite measurements shows the rise in sea level since 1992. The green to orange to red colors represent increasing ocean acidity since the 1700s as more CO2 has dissolved in the oceans. Increased acidity threatens the ability of marine species in the future to grow and maintain their shells, endangering their survival. Plants and animals are reacting to global warming. Many more northern hemisphere species have moved upslope and north toward cooler temperatures, shown by the bars above the line, then moved downslope and south, shown by the bars below the line. The migrations have averaged 6.1 kilometers or 3.8 miles per decade. The vertical axis on this chart is the distance that bird species in the U.S. have migrated north to cooler temperatures since 1965. Many biological events, such as the timing of breeding, appearance of the first flowers in the spring, butterfly emergence, and the like, are happening earlier, as shown by the bars below the line. 405 plant species in the United Kingdom that scientists have been tracking since the mid-1700s are flowering earlier. Just since 1990, the regions in which the climate is most favorable for plants in the U.S. have migrated visibly north. The evidence shown in these slides represents decades of work by thousands of the world's scientists. Based on this evidence, every organization of practicing scientists in the world concludes that global warming is real and that we are its cause. Could each of these slides and each of these organizations be wrong? How is that even possible?